Hello and welcome, and in today's video I'm going to show you the top 10 most OG Ark Tames, so without further ado let's get straight into it. In at number 10 we have got the Mosa, and this creature is here for many reasons, namely that it kind of changed the shape of the ocean biome back in those early stages of Ark, as I'm pretty confident this wasn't really hugely accessible in the early stages of the game. At least I didn't really get into it until like 2016, but I'm not sure if they're around on launch or not. I only really remember the megalodons as sea creatures. I might again just be slightly wrong on those facts, but either way this creature was very influential. It's very big and you have a lot of memories with this creature, and obviously with that platform saddle as well, it added something new and innovative. I know the plesiosaur did have that as well. There was actually quite a big thing when that creature came out as well, so I guess it's of a similar era to that, and it just really changed the ocean biome in a way. And nowadays it is definitely quite outdated, but back then it was such a cool creature and I still have a memory of it, and it really is one of the OGs. Next up we have got the Castoroides, and this creature is here because when it came out I just used this thing so much, and with that smithy as its platform saddle, like, I just really liked that feature. It seems really cool, new and innovative to me. Not sure if the RG did have it at the time, but this definitely did have it back when it released. They also could swim pretty fast as well, and although I didn't spend too much time in the water back then in those days, I still did enjoy going around and just exploring the underwater aspects of the game occasionally, and it was just nice to have a speedy-ish way of travel as well. And obviously that wood gathering was really on point, and also just a general travel mount across the map as well. I did use this for, and for storage as well, as their weight was pretty good. I just really liked this creature as well, just to generally like have it, because I tended to collect a lot of creatures back then, and whenever a new one came out I would always have to tame that. You kind of say this is on a similar level to the Procoptodon and that sort of OG nostalgia from that kind of creature. So like, yeah, I have so many nice fond memories of this creature, and for me it's one of the OGs. It's a bit forgotten about nowadays, but it definitely does deserve some attention, as you can get quite a significant amount of use out of something like this. Next up we have got the Stegosaurus, and I remember when I first tamed one of these things and it took me over 2 hours back then, once obviously it had been knocked out. So you know, it really did take quite a bit of time back in the days, but that was mainly just because the rates were lower, and I think the game did have quite a drastic change when the UI update and all of that happened in terms of rates. So you know, the game has just become a lot easier since then, but that was ages ago, and obviously back in these times that was before the UI update. Also, just to mention, do you prefer the new UI or the old UI? Because I'm not talking about ASA UI, by the way, I'm just talking about Ark UI versus like 2016, 2015, 2017 Ark UI. Like, that was actually still an SOTF until like late 2022, I think, when SOTF obviously got the update. So you know, a lot of people probably would have experienced that UI at some point, but I just want to know your opinions on it. Do you like it? Do you not like it? There are some things which I do think are really nostalgic about it, and you know, that kind of does go for most things, but largely I would say the new UI is better. And also, if you haven't realised already, the Stego has had significant amounts of TLC, because back then it was only really a berry gatherer, and yes, you could use it for doing all kinds of tanking. It's now an even better tank with those plate modes, obviously, but back then didn't have it. But still, it's so nice to see that Wildcard did give it some love with the TLC update, and it's revitalized this creature even more, as it is definitely a staple as one of those OGs, and you really can't forget the Stego when talking about general things in Ark. It just needs to be in every conversation with OG Ark creatures, and that is why I've put it on the list. Next up we have got the UT, and I have just such fond memories of this creature. I had to put it here on this list, and I didn't really use it for bosses too much back in the day with the Broodmother, before obviously its arena existed. You just fight it there on the Obelisk Terminal. But then when I kind of found out about these creatures and just started using them more, I really grew a lot of love for this creature, and still to these days I really do just like basically have to tame a UT. It's almost like just an impulse thing. It's like impulse buying stuff. It's like, oh yeah, you have to buy that. It's not like, obviously it's just, oh, you got to buy that because it's new and fresh. So I guess impulse buying maybe isn't the best way of saying it, but impulsive thoughts in a way. Like, you just, oh, first thing, yeah, have to get a UT. Obviously it's not going to be the first thing you're doing, but you know, it's wide into my brain, like some other creatures as well, which are later on this list as well, and they just pretty much have to qualify as an OG tame. Crame? What is a crame? Comment that down below. What do you think a crame is? Because I have no idea. My brain is all with imagining and creating words today. But yes, definitely does classify as an OG tame if it is that memorable to me, and obviously it has been in Ark for an absolute while, so you know it would make sense why it is definitely one of those OGs, and I really do think still to this day very useful creature, and back then very useful as well. Next up we have got the Megalodon, and this is kind of all I remember of the ocean biome really in those early stages of the Ark game. I'll get myself a Megalodon and just get out there and do some general ocean exploring. I can't remember if silica poles were even a thing back then. I'm not really sure, but it's probably muddle up of memories and all things. Actually, comment that down below. Were silica poles around in 2015? Because at this point, when going through things, like we are like eight years, isn't it now? Something like that. It's more than 8, isn't it? We're in 2024. Not quite 8. It will be 9 years in June. It's been a long time, so my brain's a bit muddled up. You can probably tell by the Meg. It's the OG though. Like, it's the Megalodon. Everyone knows what the Megalodon is. It's that big shark, and to have it in a dinosaur game makes sense. Everyone just kind of knows what it is. Also had received a TLC update as well since its release, so it's nice to see that Wildcard has shown this creature some love as well. And in my opinion, it's surprisingly underrated nowadays, and there's an X variant on Gen 1, so if you have Gen 1, definitely recommend taming Megalodon there. Don't know why I said definitely twice, but you know, intensify the intensifier, as they say. In at number 5 we have got the Baryonyx, and this creature is here because I just remember doing caving and these things back in the day. Obviously they weren't the oldest creature in the book in terms of Ark stuff. I'm pretty sure they came around a lot later when Swamp Biome and Redwoods Biome were introduced, but I still have really strong kind memories with these creatures, and to this day they're pretty much the only creature I use for caving. I know there are probably some better options out there, like the Shadowmane, or quite a lot of people did use Sabres. I actually did use Sabres quite a lot. Very nice OG creature. Not on this list, but you know, give it a quick mention if you were thinking Sabres. I've given the Sabre a brief mention. You can also the Thyla as well, although I don't really have many OG memories with that creature. I do more so with the Baryonyx, which is obviously why the Baryonyx is in on the list at this spot. But it's just, you know, so many fond memories with this creature. Just used it so much, not just for caving but for general travel, and not sure if they did have that spin ability when they were first introduced, because I don't really remember using all too much of it. But I'm also not really sure if they even would have got any kind of TLC, but they might have at some point. Again, not really sure. Comment that down below. My knowledge is really failing me. I should do an update at some point. It's like I'm giving you information on these creatures and I don't really have much information myself when going back this far. Really should have done a bit more research. Now, when the Quetz was introduced, which I'm confident is 2016, definitely not any later, and obviously definitely not any earlier, so I guess it kind of just has to be 2016. It really did change up the game for Ark. Like the fact you could get a platform saddle on a flying thing, and at that point flyer speed hadn't been nerfed yet, and I think they nerfed some other things as well, not just speed. I think they nerfed damage or something like that as well. Something happened at a point as well when everything got nerfed, but these were out, I'm pretty sure, pretty confident they were out before flyer speed leveling was obviously just not a thing anymore, and you could get some ripping fast Quetzals with some really cool bases on the back of them, and that would just be your way of cruising around the world. Again, such a game changer. It gave you a new perspective, and taming these things was an absolute pain back then, especially if you were doing it solo. But if you did have some friends, I guess it wasn't the worst thing, and if you were doing it solo, you could always use the RG and Pulmonoscorpius method, and if you just knew how to do it and you didn't really mess it up, then that was a surefire way to tame yourself a Quetzal. In at number 3 we got the Giga, or the Tiny Tim, whatever you want to call it. If you get the reference, put that down in the comments below on what the video was. Rest in peace, that series ended, I think, 1 or 2 episodes later, pretty much just without warning. If only we could have got more of that series. But you know, that is just how the YouTuber tends to work for that channel, you know. They don't really finish series, but they've said that they will more now. I don't know why I'm talking about that so much. Either way, let's just talk about the actual creature in hand, which is the Giga. And when the Giga hit the scene in 2016, again 2016 like the Quetzal, I think it was after It may have been before as well, but I'm pretty confident after the Quetzal, this thing dropped, and it was insane that we had this thing because it was just so big, and again, it gave a new dimension to the world of Ark. And obviously the reason why it's not higher is because 2016, you know, it did come a lot later on in all of that, and this creature just, you know, it was so influential, but sadly, obviously, it basically just came a year too late to really make it into the top 2 spots for the OG Ark Tames, but it really did make such a big difference. And with all its abilities, even that Rage Meter was seen as really cool. It does definitely make it into the top 3. Really is a really cool OG creature. Now, from OG creatures and like pure nostalgia and all of that, I was tempted to put the Caro in at number 1, but for the sanity of all of you viewers out there, I did not do it because I obviously, not everyone is a Caro addict like I am, and it's kind of like drugs for this thing. For me, I'm just like, this is just like the most OG creature in a way. But obviously, I put a different creature in at number 1 to savour you from all those bad comments, even though there probably still is going to be a little bit of hatefulness. Fine, you know, you might not really like the Caro, but this is my list and not your list. You're free to agree, you're free to disagree. I always say that. I don't really mind on what your opinions are, and I think that all of them are really valid. Just want to make that clear. I know YouTubers say it all the time, but you know, I follow the same kind of policy. Either way, with this creature, I was using it pretty much from day 1. Obviously not from day 1 because the rates were so low back then. You would never be able to get a Caro then. But like, it was one of the first carnivores I got. I got Raptors first, but really not a very memorable creature to me. Didn't really like them that much. When I got my hands on a Caro, didn't even have the saddle, just had it following around. And obviously named it Connie Dave because of the same YouTuber with the Tiny Tim thing. So, you know, thanks for all of the memories. It just adds even more to the OG-ness. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. If not, this is going to sound all really confusing to you, and I'm sorry for that, but for all the people that do get it, they will definitely be enjoying this. Either way, talking about the Caro as well, this did get a TLC, which obviously it didn't have before, so now it has the bleed ability, which is a nice really thing to have. Shows wildcard did actually show some support for this creature. Just really like it. It's small, it's agile, it's got that nostalgia factor for me. Really is an OG. You can get so much use out of it, at least I can. Some people probably maybe won't agree with that because I prefer creatures like Aloes, and I do agree, they're really great, just I am a bit of a Caro addict. And in at number 1, we have got the RG, and this creature is here just because it is so memorable for its old model and also just for its use. Obviously now it's got its new model, and I'm pretty sure it had a lot of TLC done to it as well with that new ability or new abilities. I'm not actually sure if it did have the regen buff, but it does have the regen buff now, where you kill something and you eat the dead corpse and then boom, you've got that regen. And also the saddle acts as a portable smithy as well. Not really sure if they had that back in the day, but obviously they do now, and they can carry an extra small creature in their mouth as well, which they definitely didn't have back in the day. That was not a thing which you could do on the RG, at least I'm pretty confident. Really hope that I haven't got that wrong, but obviously they could pick up things in just the general claw position, and I think the way they pick up creatures is different on the new model to the old model, because like they used one arm there seemingly on the new model. I think on the old one it was both, because it kind of like grabbed around the shoulders. Again, the old RG model was pretty much just like a bird, but just at the back it was like a square with a couple of feathers, and those feather textures, man, brings a lot of nostalgia, but also brings a lot of maybe some off-brand RG models. You know, if it was still an Ark today, that would be a little bit concerning for the developers. I'd be like, why have you not updated this yet? Still, the nostalgia factor's there for it, obviously, and it's an insane resource gatherer and such a useful creature. It's got weight reduction on things like metal, crystal, and obsidian, and as a must-have, definitely is the OG. But anyway, that is the end of today's video, and I really hope that you all did enjoy this one, as I very much did enjoy making it. And as always, comment down below what is the most OG Ark creature to you, and put your 10 in the comments below if you didn't agree with me, and I'll see you all later.